The fact that you're here today speaks volumes as to who you are and how you love God and how you love your family. Proverbs 22:6 is a verse that you've heard many times. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get old, they will not depart from it. I like that word train, and I know that you do as well. That word train speaks to intentionality, on purpose. And so for the fact that you are being here tonight, you are saying it is on purpose in your life that you care about the eternal destiny of your children. It's been a number of years ago, but I was sitting in a class at seminary, and a visiting professor was there, and he made this comment, and I've never forgotten it. He said, "The children that you have at your home are your missionaries to the world." And I had never really heard that phrase before, and I had never really been able to couch it just like that, but it changed how I parented. That the kids, the children that I have at home are our representatives to the world to represent Christ. Friends, thank you for being here. God is using you, and the tools that you take away from tonight are going to help you prepare your missionaries for the world. We love you much.
From the day your child is born to the day they graduate, you have 936 weeks. 936 weeks of soccer practice and homework, and teaching them to use deodorant. 936 weeks to instill values, to build character, and to prepare them to face the world. You want to be a great parent, and we're here to help with each moment of parenting gold. Driving your 4th grader to practice, saying goodbye to your 10th grader as he's walking out the door, eating tacos in the kitchen with your 7th grader, tucking your toddler in at night. These moments happen every week, and we want you to be aware of the time you have left, because when you are, you do more with the time you have now. We cue you with easy, just-in-time ideas of things to say, things to do, and things to think about to connect with the heart of your child. Our cues are grounded in God's big story, so your child can discover the power of faith in those everyday moments of life. Every cue fits the context of your child's developmental phase. We cue you when your high schooler won't leave their room, your middle schooler won't pick up their clothes, your 2-year-old won't stop talking. We help you understand these moments, and we help you connect. You only have 936 weeks. You can't afford to waste them. Parent Cue. It's what we do. Download it for free today.
Hey parents, thanks so much for joining us. We are excited to have a conversation around healthy habits. My name is Anna and I'm the kids director here at First, and I am with Ambra Evans, one of my good friends who I look to a ton when it comes to having this conversation with my kids and me personally, just living these things out. And so I'm excited to invite you guys into a conversation that honestly Ambra and I have been having for a few years now, and so it'll be fun just to invite you in, and we're going to address some questions that you as parents have sent us, and questions that are just good to address as we lead our kids and have this conversation at home. And so while Ambra is, in my mind, an expert, and I go to her all the time with tons of questions, I know she would quickly say, this is a journey, and we are just figuring out this right along with you. And so in our house, Brett and I, we have 2 kids, Hudson, who is 7, and Finley, who is 5. And Hudson, if we're talking about food, is a very picky eater. Everything we put in front of him, he is convinced that is gross and he's not gonna like it until we force him to take a bite, and then he's like, oh, this is pretty good. And then we have Finley, who is gonna eat anything except for mashed potatoes. If you give her mashed potatoes, she thinks they're the nastiest thing in the world. But she is also our one that asks for ice cream, even after breakfast, every meal. She's a true Reigns, because they love, yes they do, they love their ice cream. And so it's just fun to have different kids who are in different phases, and we're just trying to figure this out right alongside you guys. And so Ambra, just tell us about your family, about your kids. What is it like in the Evans house as you talk about healthy habits?
Oh goodness. Okay, so Matt and I have 3 kids. Our oldest is Caden, he's 11. Beckham is 9, and sweet little Evelyn, mighty but small, she is 6. And this has definitely, like Anna said, just been such a journey. So fun story. Caden is your type A. He wants to do everything very right. We actually have to be careful about just the words that we use when we talk about, exercise and health and food, because he will take it and like just run with it. He was the one at a 5-year-old party. The mother had to call me and ask if it was okay if my son had a root beer float, because he told that kid's mom that he was not allowed to have soda. So like I say, like he takes it and runs. So we have that extreme. And then Sweet Beckham, he was actually the one why we really started digging into just the food piece and nutrition, because he was having some just minor behavior issues at school. I linked it to some food things. Honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna enter World War III if I start taking some things away. But he has just grown so well in that and is doing awesome. And then little Evelyn, she is just there for the ride. Of course, when it comes to food, she does awesome. I think it's helped that brothers model that. My kids are normal kids. They like the junky snack food like we all like.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, just even from our kids and your kids, like all kids are different and like different things, and some things are going to be a greater battle for one kid than it is for another kid. We're going to even get into body image a little bit, and one kid's going to struggle with something that maybe another kid even in your house doesn't struggle with, but they have different struggles. And so as we talk today and just talk through different tips and tools that we have found helpful, or as we answer some questions, things that we have found worked or didn't work, just know like this is a journey, and all parents and all kids are on a journey, and we're all trying to figure this out together. There is not a perfect one way fits all, but we're just figuring it out as we go alongside you. So we're going to kind of break tonight up into 3 parts. We're going to talk about food, we're going to talk about exercise, and we're going to talk about body image. And in our parent resource hallway, we have hanging on the walls our phase maps. And one of the phase maps that you will see on there is healthy habits. And we will send these out to you as we have before, but we're going to look at this phase map of healthy habits a few times tonight. But we're also just going to know that that is a resource out on our wall that you can stop and look at, or when we send it to you, open up and take it, just take a deeper look at it. But as you look at that, what healthy habits is, it's learning to strengthen my body through exercise, nutrition, and self-advocacy. I knew I was going to mess up on that word. Advocacy. And so we have split these into phases. So Jessica and Amy Barnett did a preschool one. Obviously, Amber and I are going to talk to our K through 5th grade families. And then our pastors, Andrew and Rob, are going to do middle school and high school. So if you have kids in other areas, make sure you check those out. But for K5, we want to help kids develop positive routines so they will enjoy eating well and exercising often. So as you look at the phase map, that is the goal of this phase, is to just develop some positive routines. And we're going to hit on that a couple times as we talk through this, because what we're just trying to do, as in the name, healthy habits, is just to create some habits, create some routines, so that these are things that are kind of built as a foundation as they grow. As in anything we talk about with technology or sexual integrity, like these are conversations that we want to have and continue to have, not a one-time thing, but continue to have over time, so that our kids can develop routines and healthy habits. So we're going to jump into food first. And a couple of parents just sent in some questions, and then we also just talked through, as we talked through what worked for our family, some things that worked. And so we're going to start with just as the Evans household has even just made a shift towards healthy habits. Why is creating healthy habits important to you and your family?
Goodness, when I was thinking through this, the why is because we really want to set our kids up for like future success. Like Anna said, this is all about habits, and the more that our kiddos at this young age can just practice these habits, again, I always say it is absolutely progression, not perfection. Like you have to throw the perfection out the window so that they can thrive and feel good and have energy. And I remember when we kind of made a shift to just really working with the kiddos and making sure that we were helping them to fuel their body well. It was a conversation about, you know what, we're doing this because we want to have energy. We want to wake up feeling good so that we can get out there and best love and serve others, because that's who we are as Evanses. That's who we are as Christ followers. So I think just giving them, a healthy foundation of the why was important as a family. And of course, along with that, Matt and I had to lead by example. Am I answering the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like we had to decide, first of all, that we wanted to live this out so that we could bring the kiddos along with us.
Yeah, and I love the language, and why I go to Amber often is because she just helps put that language for me to even use with my kids, but like fueling our body, and you'll hear these things throughout our time together, but I just love the language. Like we don't do this because we want to be skinny or have a six pack or whatever. Like we want to do this because we want to go live and love to the best of our ability. And when we don't fuel our body well, then maybe we don't have the energy or we don't have the whatever to go and do that. And so I love just the language that you're going to hear. So what does dinner time look like for your family? Like what does a typical dinner look like? Do you cook 100 things? Do you cook 2 things? Do your kids really eat what you eat? All those things. Like what does dinner look like?
Okay, so let me back up. When we kind of started making a shift toward just being a lot more intentional toward fueling our bodies, eating good food that was going to add fuel, again, we grounded it with the why behind it, and we also, because we felt like that was important for the kids to be more on board. But before that, I personally always allowed, like if I was making dinner and the kiddos, would stub their nose and they didn't want what mom made, I always had an option. Okay, and my option was always peanut butter and jelly. Well, as Matt and I were just like trying to figure out like next steps, and we wanted to take our family along with this journey, we realized the kids were always picking peanut butter and jelly. And I wanted them to try vegetables and try different food groups so that when they left the house, they didn't just know how to eat peanut butter and jelly, And so I think that was one shift I made, is I was no longer a shorthand cook. I made a meal that everyone was going to eat. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, in the beginning, it was harder. There were new vegetables. There were new things that the kids were seeing on their plate. But I always had the rule, I want you to at least try it. I did not force an entire, vegetable group down them, but I wanted them to try it. Even Beckham, I told you, my middle one, was a little more stubborn on this journey. We would videotape him eating certain foods, because when I would cook the same thing the next week, it was a whole nother meltdown. Now, this is when he was a toddler. And so I would videotape him and then show him, look, you ate this last week and you liked it, you know? And so I want to encourage you all, like, stay the course. Like, there were some days in the beginning it was harder. I know I'm not even to the question yet. But like, stay the course. Like, this is good. Like, your kids do need you to pour that foundation into them. So a typical family, a family meal at our house is not fancy at all. I am not a great cook. I don't love cooking. I've had to change my attitude about even that. But spaghetti with, a side of broccoli or asparagus or zucchini, and some fruit. I mean, truly, it's very simple. One other thing, like as we were transitioning, I realized that sometimes my kiddos had a really big snack. So when this new food was presented to them, well, they weren't even physically hungry. So it was hard to get them to even try this food. So kind of a tip that I have is maybe lessen the snack so that their body is actually telling them like, hey, I'm hungry. And even helping kids to recognize like this is a hunger cue. Like that tells me it's time to put some fuel into my body.
Yeah.
So yeah, spaghetti with a broccoli, a fruit, you know, that would be a typical meal.
I think when you're talking about snacks too, like that makes so much sense because I will watch my kids down a plate of food and not complain about it when they're hungry.
Yes.
And then when they're not and they've snacked too much, then that's when the whining and the fighting of I have to eat the broccoli and you ate it 2 days ago and loved it, you know, comes in. So that makes so much sense of just even watching where those snacks come in to play. And so that's good. What happens though when you have 7 practices, a meeting, life group, and you got to take, you don't have a dog, but your dog to the groomer?
That is a very typical scenario. So yes, like life on the run.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the biggest thing I hear from a lot of people. Like, how do you do it? We are so busy. Remember again, progression, not perfection. Like not every meal is the Evans family sitting down together. Like that's just the season we're in. That's not happening. That's our goal. That's what we work toward. But I would say definitely choosing if it's going to be fast food, not letting that become a regular. Like you do have to work hard. Like I have to sit down on Sundays and do my meal prepping so that I'm prepared for the crazy that's going to happen. But running through fast food, like it's going to happen. Pick something that's a healthier option. We love to do Chipotle. We love to do Chick-fil-A. There's a little plug, Brandon and Jill. Honestly, those are kind of our options that we go to if we're going to eat out. There are some great options. Costco has some gluten-free chicken nuggets that we stick in the oven. So it literally might be 5 chicken nuggets, you know, on their plate with some, I'm trying to think of, we do a lot of pepper, like bell pepper slices, like to get that veggie in, and they grab it and they are in the car eating. So it really can be done.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get this idea that it has to look this certain way, and it really doesn't have to.
Yeah. And I think with that too, we had the conversation of just, again, we're creating healthy habits and we're trying to develop positive routines. And so if our routine is most of the time a really good, healthy meal, then we can feel better about those few times that we do need to just like run through a drive-through, or we need to grab something quick, because we know like the healthy habits, the positive routines that we're creating are what's happening more often. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Hey, I thought of something else too that probably goes back to the last question. Getting the kids involved has been a game changer in our house. So even from taking them to the grocery store and talking through, again, not obsessing over it, but just like, we're going to pick this versus this, and just the conversation around it. And they're starting to learn and take ownership in that, and having them be involved with helping make meals. One of our favorite meals recently is the kiddos, we all make our own like little personalized pizza. So that's healthy there. And then they can add their own toppings, and it's fun. They get excited about it.
Yeah, which again goes back to even like the tool of this phase map, because it'll talk about like helping grocery shop and look at ingredients and helping them. I mean, so much of what I've learned is even just learning the information about it. Like I didn't know what was healthy and really what wasn't, besides your basics, you know? And so just like teaching kids to know about the food and the labels and what goes into it, and if this is in it or that's in it, then maybe we should choose a different option. And it also talks about letting them cook for you and letting them be a part of cooking. So I love those pieces.
I thought of one more thing, like with life on the go. Something else when we started making this shift is I honestly just had to get rid of a lot of the snacky, sugary, like typical like kids snacks because that was always what they were going to rather than the healthier or the fruit. And so a lot of our life on the go is grab some nuts, grab some fruit, having pre-cut ups, fruit or pre-sliced veggies and some hummus that they can grab. Like it makes such a difference when you have, that available for them.
Yeah, which is a trick that we both just learned and started was even just getting some like mason jars and cutting up fruit or cutting up some vegetables and having it in there. And multiple times already in the past couple of days, like I've just grabbed it and dumped some on their plate, and it's so easy. It's not a big process because it's already prepared. So good stuff. Okay, how do we guide our kids to make a healthy choice even when we're not with them?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Gotta release control.
I was just gonna say, I think it starts with like releasing control, because I do think as parents, when we're doing something good for our kids and we know like this is something that, personally we felt like God was calling us to and we wanted to focus on, like there was a place where I had to just release control. Maybe I'm a bit of a control freak and be okay with that. But you guys, with anything, like the goal is that we're creating these habits together so that when they're not physically with mom and dad, and even Caden, he's going into middle school, so he's getting more of that independence, that they will make better choices. And I'm not saying go to a party with your friends and not have the ice cream. Like that's not what we're talking about. There's a time to, celebrate. Just make sure you're not celebrating every night. We like to, our society likes to do that. But even it's the same thing like with screen time. My hope is that when I'm not right with my kids, that they are limiting themselves, because that's something that we practice at home, that we're not just constantly on the screen. And I think just having the conversation with them, again, knowing, especially because there's some hypoglycemia that runs in our family, and so sugar is something we have to be careful, with. Like I said, like with the birthday party, like, you know what? Go enjoy like a piece of cake and ice cream with your friend, but having that conversation, like, but still you want to make sure you're fueling your body well, and you don't want to get a tummy ache because you're not used to eating a lot of that. So just stop at one, and having that quick conversation before they jump out the door.
Yeah. I love what you said. Like, it's just like anything else we teach. Screen time. I was even just thinking like God time. Like, I so want my kids to go off to college and know how to spend time in God's word, and know that when they wake up, like that's the first place I want them to go. And so it's, again, just creating these disciplines, these habits that we want them to have when they're not with us. And that's harder probably right now when they're younger, but what we're really trying to train and like just whatever, get them in the habit of doing is when they're older too. So, okay, we're gonna jump to exercise because of just protecting your time. So, as we think about exercise and moving our bodies, like what are just some of your family's favorite go-to activities to do, maybe even together or like on their own?
Okay, yes, we love family bike rides, whether it's around the neighborhood or, going to a trail, just going to a park, taking a football, throwing the ball around. My kids love like Ninja Warrior, and so we'll make up little obstacles and time them, and we might be a little bit competitive in our family, so we run with that. Let's see, just getting outside and throwing the ball around, trampoline, going on walks. Anytime we have something to deliver, like just to love on a neighbor, we love to just walk together. I know that seems silly, but that's walking rather than riding. So just making that a part of our lifestyle, really. Yeah, for sure. What about like times that it's hard to get your kids to do those things, or it's hard to get them moving? Because for like one of mine, she could sit in front of a TV or on her iPad all day. The other one, I can't like slow down. But for those ones that are harder to get motivated to move, like what has been a good... Oh gosh, I don't give them the option.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
I have some kiddos that could just sit there on the couch, and I won't say don't ever, but our goal is that they don't get any tech time until there has been some movement. So during summer, like that's going to be a big focus. Like we're going to go out and move and be in nature together before we instantly grab iPads. Home from school, you know, I want them out, go see who, you know, see what neighbors are out, like go move your body before we grab, and they just know, like they know to not even ask me. I have had seasons where I have had to say, go outside, I'm locking the door, don't come in for 30 minutes. And they look at me and I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. Like, go outside. And you know what? They figure it out and they always come back just in a better mood.
Yeah.
Like, that's what movement does.
Yeah.
We feel good when we're moving.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think a lot of this is even us just having the energy, because going on family bike rides takes energy for us. And so again, it just goes back to like us setting an example and us doing the same healthy habits that we're asking our kids to do, so that we have the energy to hang out with our kids, so that we have the energy to go on the bike ride. Because I can get tempted to be like, okay, here's an iPad because I don't want to do it right now. So it again, like, is a good thing for me to think through, and starts with me.
And that's the coolest thing, because usually if we're struggling with just being exhausted or lazy, like we as adults need to get up and go get some vitamin D. And so it's a win for the whole family.
Yeah. So back to our phase map. One of the conversation cues is to reframe body talk. Say things like, I'm so impressed by what your body can do. And so as we were even just thinking about body image, we just started to have the conversation like, man, when I think about body image, like, I think about me looking in a mirror, and when I'm looking into a mirror, my mind is telling me something about my body. And so as we're obviously talking about healthy habits and doing things that will have an effect on our body image really comes to the mind. And so as we think about that, like, how do we help our kids train their mind to focus on who God says they are, God's truth, and to find their identity in Jesus, so that when they look in the mirror, they know they are a child of God, they are His, they are a masterpiece, those kinds of things.
Gosh, I think that's a big one that really, all of this starts with us, but that really starts with us modeling that first. Because like you said, yes, if we're constantly on the scale or in the mirror and our daughters see us, like that's going to quickly go into their mind. Well, mom, and I really think just modeling that and being careful and mindful where we are as adults. Speaking truth is huge. Like just reminding them, as I do with myself, but reminding the kiddos that, you know, they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that the way that their body is. Beckham, my middle one, is just, he's small, he's petite. Those of you that know him, and there's already been some conversation that has come up, just a little bit of bullying and just some comments, and I tell you what, like, I want that boy to know, like, no, God made your body that way, and we think about the positive, like, what can you do because you're small? What can you do because of this certain feature? And so I think using positive language and just pointing them back to, like, this is not an accident, and just being confident in that as their parent, like, this is exactly how your Creator designed you, and His plan for you is in this body that He's given you.
And I think that's something I've learned from your family too, and just watched your family do, and then we have copied, is just even coming up with like a family statement or a family declaration, because I want my kids to not only hear me speak truth, but I want them to speak it too. And I want them to know who God says they are. And so like we ask every day, like, who are you? And they're a child of God. They're confident, they're compassionate, they're committed, like, because I want them to hear it. And then one day when something comes to mind or someone questions something, it's just like automatic in their head, like, no, this is who I am. That's not who I am. This is who I am. So I loved what you were saying too, just about like our daughters watch us and our sons watch their dads or other role models in their lives. Hudson is a huge Steph Curry fan right now. So he watches all the Golden State games and was even watching YouTube highlight videos the other day, which is so funny. But the other day, Steph Curry hit an incredible shot and like did this lift up his shirt, like bragging, whatever, happy dance. Well, then Hudson, like all week long, has been like, oh yeah, and doing the same thing, because what he saw, he is doing. And so that's why it's so important. Again, like so much of what we've talked about just starts with us and us setting the example. Just like we've talked about spiritually too, like we have to be in God's word. We have to be doing those things because our kids aren't going to trust us when we tell them to do it, but we're not doing it. And so I think too, the last thing just around that is the idea of you talking about Beckham and even maybe some bullying happening there. Like, this is why we want to equip you to have critical conversations, not that are just one-time conversations, but that are over time and constantly happening in your house, because we want to help create safe places. I want to create a safe place in my house, and I want you to create a safe place in your house where your kids know nothing is off limits. I can go to my parents with anything. And so we've even asked questions and this Healthy Habits talks about bedtime routine, which we're not even going to get close to covering everything, but at bedtime, like asking, hey, what was the best part of your day? Or what was your high? Or asking, what was your low? Like, did anything make you sad? Because that's where some of those pieces of information we may get or hear because we're asking questions about their day.
Yep, my kids have not yet been the type that just come home and just give me all the information, and it truly was in a bedtime laying down like conversation where Beckham was able to express some of this, and then that way I could take those lies, those things that the enemy's already putting into his head, and we could transfer right into God's truth and just remind him of who he is in Christ.
Yeah, so good. And I think that's again on us, just even getting creative of questions we ask or how we ask it, so that we don't get the like, good, done, like, okay, tell me what you noticed today. Like,
and just being patient. Like, I noticed my boys slowly starting to be more and more communicative with me. Communicative? That's the word.
Sure. Yeah, so not giving up after you get the same answer for 3 days in a row.
Correct.
Because what you're doing is creating a safe place, and that takes time for them to know, okay, you mean I'm not going to get in trouble if I tell you this or that or whatever. So, okay, as we wrap up, just give us a final thought, like encourage parents. What is something that they can just take away with this last minute?
Okay, my encouragement would be, you're doing awesome, okay? Don't strive for perfection, but take that next step. Like, I know that sometimes this can be overwhelming, but your kids are worth it. And the little bit that you do on a daily basis over time consistently is going to compound, and it is going to make a huge difference. Like, just go for it, do it imperfectly, lean on others to help in the times that sometimes it is just like, God, this feels like a lot. Like, lean on others, and just, your kids are worth it. You're doing awesome.
Yeah. So I love that we got to have this conversation at this time, because in the filling station, we're talking about commitment, and that is just making a plan and putting it into practice. So what we're just inviting you to do is come up with a plan and put it into practice when it comes to healthy habits. But along with what we're doing on Sunday mornings, we're just having fun with it in the idea of training and exercise and running the race. And part of what we've talked about is exercise and moving. And so at the end of this month, which is crazy, it's just like we're already so close to the end of this month, we are doing a Memorial Day run. And so there is information that's been sent home. There is information on social media, but we would love for your family to be a part. And it's just a way to put a plan into practice. Like, come ready to walk a 1 mile, or come ready to do the kid dash, or whatever it is. We're going to have an inflatable there with obstacle course. And so that could be a fun movement piece for your family, and just different activities. So sign up for that and be a part, because we would love to just be together and continue this conversation. Also, follow us on social media if you don't, because over the next couple weeks, I think we're just going to even share some more tips, and like, here's a good snack, or maybe this is what a good lunch option looks like, or things like that, as we continue to have this conversation. So thank you for joining us.